First of all, Jinn are made from invisible, smokeless fire, which cannot be seen or revealed, showing that Jinn's spiritual energy force exists and is naturally strong. Second of all, Jinn can be born in any shape or form on Earth, specifically to shapeshift into any animal, human or objects they attach themselves to. Third of all, Jinn have unforeseen powers and abilities given to them by Allah. In addition, the wicked ones do too. Then once Jinn attach themselves, they can cause earth dwellers to have seizures while awake and also during sleep. Typically, seizures caused by Jinn allow control over your actions and identity. For example, making earth dwellers move like puppets while speaking words in different languages. As a result, they may take abnormal actions against earth dwellers while in a trance state. For example, actions they really would not have done or said in the first place if they were not a Jinn. This allows Jinn to make the choice of earth dwellers doing good as well as evil deeds, since Adam and Eve ate the apple from the tree of knowledge, which allowed you to know good from bad deeds, giving you free will. Good Jinns, they also consequently seek justice for earth dwellers' wrongdoings, as you did to them. However, wicked Jinns can too. Meanwhile, the wicked one does it to cause pain, above all despair. Next, Jinns need a catalyst act of built-up emotional, spiritual energy, especially to create such an entity to exist. Afterwards, a Jinn can travel through different dimensions and times, looking back at our ancestors' history while at the same time talking amongst them. Finally, Jinns are scared of iron. Similarly, wolves too. For instance, wolves sense Jinns' evil spirits and keep them away from people who want to be protected by them. In particular, fire is a Jinn's natural element, while iron connects with fire. To illustrate, heated iron in smaller pieces can cause a chemical reaction when mixed with oxygen, creating fire. The Jinn on Earth, Amina Allah. Conclusion: I do not like being around metal, iron or copper, as much as transition metals make me feel like my life force is being sucked out of my vessel. For instance, as soon as I touch transitional metals, I get dizzy, lightheaded, and my respiration rises. However, I feel like my body is being pulled downward towards hell on earth, while my negative and positive charges inside of my atoms are at the same time being ripped apart like Allah's earth. First of all, a Jinn of love would come from a catalyst act of affection, seeking faithfulness, caring, passion and protection to gain trustworthiness. For instance, my first vision at the age of 11 happened while laying upon my bed as I slept. In particular, I had a vision of my sperm donor falling asleep in his yellow taxicab. After all, he was always working so many long hours every day. Second of all, an earth dweller thief came up to his taxicab seeking to steal money. Since my sperm donor vessel was very strong, tall and bold, he told the thief dweller, "You will not receive my belongings." Third of all, the thief cut his neck and robbed him before throwing his lifeless body in a green garbage container. Meanwhile, the thief took his body to an alleyway where my sperm donor vessel taxicab was parked. I woke up crying and scared that he died so. I called him every day after having this vision. After all, he was okay. Then one day my sperm donor vessel came to visit. His hand was dripping dark red blood from an open wound, a wound that looked similar to mine as I played with my siblings running around a large glass table, accidentally slashing my left hand. I asked him what happened. To clarify, he explained falling asleep in his taxicab while a poor earth dweller tried robbing him. Next day, I realized seeing into the future was actually real. Unfortunately, no one believed me. Incidentally, I realized I left my body, and sometimes I did not. Furthermore, when leaving my body, regardless, I used to be scared and frightened. Still, I was able to talk to people, bringing information and knowledge back to our plane of existence. Undoubtedly, when someone hurt me out of spite, eventually something terrible would happen to them afterwards. Besides, I would seek gifts and rewards, incidentally, from their wrongdoings. Also, every time I cry, disasters will happen around the world, so I try not to cry once I noticed and really realized who I truly am. Finally, I also have seen spirits of my ancestors since I was a child. For instance, one day at 11 years old, I saw 3 of my ancestors as I woke up. They were standing upon my bedroom door. Afterwards, I was so scared, I did not see spirits for a very long time. Meanwhile, I also see people, places, and tragedies with my eyes wide open or shut. Predictably, I look up my visions to see if they came true upon the universe. Indeed, most of them did. First, a Jinn of love would come from a catalyst act of affection, seeking faithfulness, caring, passion, and protection to gain trustworthiness. For instance, at the age of 25, I lay next to my ex-fiancée in bed, having another vision and seizure. A vision of me hovering above a small house, watching a woman running out of the front door. As foreseen, she was wearing a small, white torn blouse with flower patterns while crying heavily. Next, an earth dweller in a long black trench coat walked into the front door. He went into the back bedroom next to the bathroom where an earth dweller lay peacefully, as if he did no wrongdoing ever in his life on earth. The earth dweller with the trench coat on pulled out a shotgun. He put the shotgun up to the earth dweller's head, telling him, "If you ever put your hands on my mother again, I will shoot you." Lastly, I woke up with an excruciating headache, telling my ex-fiancé my vision, and he asked in a soft, tired voice, "How did you even know this happened?" This was his mother and his brother, as his brother was just being released from prison. First, a Jinn of love would come from a catalyst act of affection, seeking faithfulness, caring, passion, and protection to gain trustworthiness. For instance, around 30, I had a vision of my family kin Natoya from Atlanta, Georgia, where she had a very dangerous car accident, ending up in a hospital, which woke me up instantly, frantic. Afterwards, I contacted my friend from Atlanta, Georgia, named Crystal, telling her about my vision. Next, she called me back not even 3 weeks later, letting me know she and 5 of her children just got into a bad car accident. Incidentally, the vision was about Crystal, not my cousin Natoya. However, Crystal said never to tell her one of my dreams ever again. I noticed if I attach myself to someone I care about, I can foresee future to protect them, as I loved that girl like she was my own child, as she went through what I went through as a child, and I felt like I had to protect her at all costs, even from her boyfriend sometimes too. First, a Jinn of wrath would come from a catalyst act of anger, seeking fear, death, envy, hostility, and war. For example, right before COVID happened in Wisconsin, I had a very scary vision. I woke up in a dark, desolate apartment building. At the same time, there was an earth dweller kneeling, scouring on the floor, trying to pick up items for sale. For this reason, I walked outside, looking around, only to see everything was crumbled around my feet and beneath them, but the White House. My body and soul felt like they were being torn apart into shreds of red and blue ribbons. Since atoms bind upon this universe from a negative and positive charge, keeping items held by strength, they were being torn into pieces of shreds by nuclear fission, just like the red and blue ribbons being pulled apart inside my body and soul. Then I saw a line of earth dwellers following an unknown leader. I was in the back of the line, where an earth dweller told me, "Don't follow the leader, all earth dwellers are being taken to be killed." After the vision, I woke up thinking the world was getting ready to end, yet also killing me. Finally, I went to numerous churches begging someone to listen to me, but no one did. I also tried understanding if the leader was leading earth dwellers to be killed biblically, as if I sensed this before. Finally, COVID happened, causing the whole world devastation. I always think to myself, what would have been different upon Earth? if Earth dwellers believed fallen angel visions were actually true, as well as how we never were witches to begin with for seeing the truth, especially knowing something terribly bad was going to happen upon Earth, even before Earth dwellers knew. For instance, just like my left-handed ancestors, who were told they were evil for being able to see into the future. They were killed, burned on crosses, tortured, and thrown into lakes to see if we floated or sank, making sure we truly were witches. First, a Jinn of love would come from a catalyst act of affection, seeking, faithfulness, caring, passion, and protection to gain trustworthiness. For instance, I had a vision. I was in my 2001 black Cherokee Jeep and the red hazard light came on. Therefore, the next morning I was extra careful getting into my car as if my vision would come true. Meanwhile, I drove really slowly and was very alert to my surroundings. Then all of a sudden, my wheels stopped working. In the event, my steering wheel brake line started leaking fluid. Eventually, under these circumstances, my wheels stopped moving. Lastly, when this vision happened, I knew Allah was protecting me, especially helping me understand how I have a job to do here on Earth, notably as a research scientist. Then I thought about the devastating tragedy as something cut the line, causing it to leak. Could it have been my family? First, a Jinn of greed would come from a catalyst act of poverty, seeking possessions, money, materialism, gaining power through wealth. For example, just as the thief Earth dweller would be considered, that harmed my father so. As a result, Chicago, Illinois is a catalyst for poverty, torture, greed, and injustice. Of course, Earth dwellers deal with pain and despair on Earth from poverty more than murders upon Earth itself. For instance, just imagine that no money existed in Illinois, which means everyone would be entitled to housing, food, education, and a job of their choice of talents to succeed. Do you really think there would be any reason for greed, torture, injustice, poverty, or despair? If Earth dwellers' needs were met, this is why money should not exist on Earth. Allah says money is the most root of all evilness and should be banned from the universe, not to be spoken of again. A Jinn of pride would come from a catalyst act of seeking authority, possessions, power, force, riches, and entitlement overall, to gain worthiness, for instance, as President Donald Trump does. Consequently, Donald Trump is specifically not trying to end all world suffering as I am. On the contrary, he's trying to cause more despair for the poor and riches for the rich by causing more sins to happen upon earth, in particular poverty, causing injustice for all. First of all, a Jinn of knowledge would come from a catalyst act of seeking powerful articulation of art, music, poetry, math, and science of the universe. For instance, at the age of 4, I remember seeing my first butterfly. I was so mesmerized by their shape and colors, especially blue. As a result, I learned more about animals at 6 years old, so I asked my sperm donor if I could be a veterinarian when I grow up. At the same time, I learned on TV that veterinarians had to do surgery on many animals, and this made me really sad and cry. Therefore, I told my sperm donor I never wanted to be a veterinarian, but I do want to be a scientist instead. Second of all, I've always been really smart in school, getting good grades and being on honor rolls, although I felt like I was not being challenged hard enough as well, since the homework was so easy and quick to do. Namely, my favorite subjects are history, reading, psychology, sociology, math, and science of the world. Third of all, as a teenager, my mum kicked me out and I could not finish high school since I needed a guardian to enroll me, but I didn't have one. Then I moved to Wisconsin and received my GED, daycare, and CNA certificate. After all, I love being around children. They make me happy. Still, I love taking care of older people and listening to their historical stories, which is very interesting to me since I love learning about my ancestors so much. More than anything, I love listening to their war stories. Afterwards, I went to college for medical administrative specialist too, while I was pregnant with my daughter Adrian. Furthermore, I moved my half-sister Billy and my nephew Anthony into my apartment since they had nowhere to live. The next day, while I was at college, my half-sister tried sleeping with my baby father, breaking up our family. At the same time, I had to eventually drop out of college and break up with Jerome too. However, only to find out he was getting ready to propose to me, and she knew the whole time. Meanwhile, out of all my baby fathers, between him and Michael, they were the best ones to me when I was being told that I was mental crazy and I didn't have anything wrong with me. As a result, I kept getting sicker from trying to work, so I never finished college. Specifically, I would experience a range of debilitating symptoms that included passing out from standing for too long, walking even short distances, and enduring constant seizures. These episodes were accompanied by profuse sweating, which often left me drenched and exhausted. My vital signs were alarmingly unstable, fluctuating unpredictably, and I frequently encountered overwhelming adrenaline rushes that left me feeling both wired and drained simultaneously. Additionally, I faced significant breathing problems, which added to the overall distress of my condition and made even the simplest tasks feel insurmountable. However, despite my alarming and bizarre symptoms, the medical professionals I encountered seemed perplexed and unable to provide a clear diagnosis. Unlike Dr. Frucht, who later came to understand my condition, the doctors at UW and Dean Clinic misinterpreted my medical records, seemingly attempting to cover up my diagnosis. This gross misunderstanding and mismanagement of my medical history resulted in further brain damage, compounding my suffering. I vividly recall my desperation when I approached Dr. Mosley, pleading with him to take a closer look at my medical records. I implored him to recognize the discrepancies and the ongoing cover-up regarding my diagnosis. I emphasized the importance of revisiting my medical history from when I was just 21 years old, a time when my symptoms were dismissed as merely mental health issues. When he finally took the time to investigate, he amended my medical records, acknowledging that they had previously thought I was experiencing panic attacks. In reality, these episodes were seizures that I had been enduring without proper recognition or treatment. Hearing this revelation was a tumultuous experience. It felt as though I had traversed through hell and back, only to find a glimmer of hope in understanding my condition. Then, in 2005, Dr. Frucht provided clarity regarding the febrile seizures that both I and my children had been experiencing. Unfortunately, these crucial details were not documented in our medical records, leading to unnecessary treatments and countless doctor visits that could have been avoided. I'd always been aware that I was having seizures, yet no one had ever informed me of the specific type or prescribed any medication to help manage them. Instead, I was left to navigate the chaos of my condition on my own. I began to connect the dots, realizing that my seizures were often triggered by environmental factors such as exposure to sunlight, extreme heat, bright lights, and elevated stress levels. This understanding made sense, particularly since seizures can indeed be exacerbated by photophobia, a sensitivity to light that I'd been grappling with for years without a proper diagnosis. The journey through my medical ordeal has been fraught with challenges, misunderstandings, and a longing for accurate recognition and treatment of my condition. Subsequently, I kept crying to Allah, wanting to commit suicide because of all the pain and symptoms, as they are so unbearable, especially not being able to control your temperature or vitals 24/7. As a result, I started hearing the same words in my ear and having the same vision over and over again until I did what I was told by Allah or Muhammad the Prophet. For instance, I was told to go to college and I can figure it out all by myself, that I needed to stay strong a little longer. Also, I was shown a vision of being in college and wearing a lab coat. Significantly, I had this vision over 20 times before I went to Madison Area Technical College to sign up for the Biotechnology Laboratory Technician program. Lastly, I was so scared and felt like I did not belong here, as I was the only black African American in class. Meanwhile, when I saw how good I was at chemistry and how it's like doing a puzzle, putting evidence together and making sense out of facts, I felt like chemistry was really fun, and I took every chemistry class I could. Finally, all Earth dwellers have a talent and a job to do on Earth, whether you feel your talent within you or not. I went to college for the last 21 years taking medical and science classes. I found out gaining knowledge does not only pay off as income, but also provides more knowledgeable power to help others in poverty, in need of medical treatment, or explaining why my children and I were suffering from abnormal symptoms. In conclusion, thanks to Allah and Muhammad whispering in my ear writings, poetry and visions of revelations, I'm closer to getting 2 degrees and a lab assistant certificate as well. First of all, a Jinn of knowledge would emerge from a profound and catalyst act of seeking, which is characterized by a powerful articulation of various forms of art, music, poetry, mathematics, and the intricate sciences that govern the universe. This pursuit of knowledge is not merely an academic endeavor, it is an exploration of the very fabric of existence, a quest that intertwines creativity with the analytical understanding of the cosmos. For instance, one day when I was in my 30s, I experienced a vivid and surreal dream that left a lasting impression on my psyche. In this dream, I found myself being abducted by extraterrestrial beings who transported me aboard a UFO. First, a Jinn of wrath would come from a catalyst act of anger, seeking, fear, death, envy, hostility, and war. For instance, Latoya Ammon's story of sin is very similar to my family's story of sin. As a self, her Jinn spirit was attached by the wicked one by an object, which is a house. In contrast, mine is attached by a Jinn of God through blood that runs through my veins from being a fallen angel's. Second, Latoya is a mother of 3 beautiful children named Nate, Andre, and Shante, who lived in a house in Gary, Indiana. When she moved into her home for the first time, her children started to act like puppets of the jinns, doing as they were told. For example, her children's voices would change into a deeper voice, just as mine, especially as I woke up from dying over and over again, from glucose shooting through my body and my veins. At the same time, evil jinns would make them say sinful words, abuse each other, and speak in abnormal tongues as the devil devoured their souls whole. For instance, they even climbed upon walls backwards as well and abused themselves, just as I did, but from pain being upon this evil world, begging to come home, which is a sign of a jinn's possession. Furthermore, they would hurt each other, not realizing they were, but they also woke up with bruises as well. This phenomenon often occurs in relationships where individuals are so deeply intertwined in their emotional struggles with the jinns that they inadvertently inflict pain upon one another, often without conscious awareness of their actions, just like me and my children having blackouts and trances, not knowing why, but these wounds were from witnessing Jesus' deaths, which is a profound and haunting experience that transcends the ordinary understanding of trauma. As we wake up around 3, sometimes with bruises and lesions that looks like whips, as well as some morning gasping for air, the majority of the time being diagnosed with sleep apnea, it becomes evident that our bodies are reacting to the psychological and spiritual turmoil we endure. This condition, intertwined with my own experience of mast cell activation syndrome, MSAS, manifests as a physical representation of the emotional and spiritual battles we face. The glucose running through my body, referred to as manna, symbolizes a divine provision that echoes the biblical narrative of the Israelites who wandered in the desert for 40 years. Just as Allah provided everlasting manna to sustain them, we too seek sustenance in our struggles, finding solace in the notion that we will never be hungry, and water, for we will never be thirsty ever again. However, in our modern context, this sustenance has transformed into a battle against mast cells, which are often hyperactive in individuals dealing with chronic health issues. When I saw this movie, I was really shocked and scared. Understandably, I'm literally going through the same battle with jinns, entities that represent the unseen struggles we face in our lives. To break the chains of the Watchers, who are often interpreted as fallen angels, is a daunting task. This is why, when prophets and apostles reach the age of 40, they often gain a significant amount of wisdom and knowledge back, as if a veil has been lifted to reveal deeper truths. If you notice, just like me, there's a study that shows people with mast cell activation syndrome, especially women, tend to experience a drastic decline in health around the age of 40. I can personally attest to this. That was the year I became allergic to everything from impurity, a sudden and overwhelming shift that left me grappling with my body's reactions. In that tumultuous year, I wrote a 105-page book, which was a holy endeavor fueled by the voices of my ancestors, who seemed to refuse to let me sleep until the job was done. Their guidance felt imperative, as if I was stuck on this earth until everything is put into its rightful place, restoring balance to the chaos that often surrounds us. This journey is not just about personal healing, but also about understanding the broader implications of our experiences, connecting the past with the present and seeking to make sense of the intricate web of existence we find ourselves entangled in. Next, Latoya was blamed for child abuse just as I was, which is the hardest part to go through as no one believes you. For instance, Latoya was very stressed. As her mother, Child Protective Services doctors and psychiatrists didn't really understand their family was being possessed by a jinn's obsession with an object, just like me. On the other hand, they thought that she was mentally unstable because of the whispers in her ear, particularly by jinns trying to control her like Pinocchio upon strings, just like me, as if the devil and Allah can't whisper in your ear, making you do bad and good deeds. On the other hand, they made her take psychological and drug tests to see if she was just mentally ill or a drug addict, just like me as well. As a result, we constantly lost our children to the state, causing our families to be torn apart every time symptoms constantly occurred. As much as all of the stress of being tortured, ridiculed, facing injustice, and not being believed would not drive someone insane, it made both of us break down, screaming to the Lord, "Please deliver me from the evil one," and also sin. As we became depressed, angry, frustrated, scared, weak, and emotional, we closed ourselves off from the world, from the good and bad jinns. In conclusion, I believe Latoya Ammons had a jinn attached to her the whole time without knowing it. For as she was raped and beaten as a child, just like me, I believe she had so much built-up anger and frustration. Not having anyone to trust or believe in her tore her to shreds, just like me. Typically, having to see her family suffer and not being able to do anything but watch the jinns devour their souls, just as I did. Furthermore, when she moved into the house in Indiana, the jinn's energy became stronger from what happened in her home before her and as a child. Sincerely, she just stopped believing in Allah from all the torture upon her, just as I did, is what it looks, sounds, and feels like. Please everyone, watch this movie while reading this book and you will believe, learn, be prepared for revelations and learn about your ancestors.